Great. Well, thanks to Sarah Avery, our health center health educator, for pulling this great thing together, which is one of a number of community Zoom town halls that she's held. And it may be that we're going to be sort of having the town hall kind of as a panel, and then we'll be releasing it to the community. And we also may get some community members who are joining the town hall. But either way, it's a great thing to provide for the community. And kind of in the background, while we've all been doing some virtual care and some in-person care, Sarah's been doing a lot of communication and education of the community, and this is just another great example of that. So I wanted to say welcome to everybody who's here, and also really appreciate the panel members. And I'll just read the list of panel members, which is mostly the people on the meeting now, but Dr. Priya Saran Gupta from adult medicine, Mark Eisenberg from adult medicine, Sarah Callahan, one of our adult medicine NPs, Dr. Sridhar Padel, who's from the Department of Psychiatry in our CBS unit, Counseling and Behavioral Services unit, Eileen McAdams, who's one of our adult med NPs, Tracy Waterhouse, who's probably on the way to joining and will be here, who's our interim nurse manager in adult medicine, and Pat Simpson, who needs no introduction to this group, but she's our emergency preparedness coordinator, runs our emergency preparedness committee, and works at all the health centers in emergency preparedness. And so like that is a power-packed group of panelists. Jeannie, is there anything you want to say by way of introduction?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say in retrospect, that's Jim Morrill, our medical director, and I'm Jeannie Bernhardt, the administrative director. And so we welcome all of you from the community who are viewing this. And as Jim said, we've got some, kind of some really extreme stars with power-packed material to share with you. And going back to the introduction of Sarah, who you see as labeled as Jennifer Pacheco in your Hollywood squares, Sarah Avery is available as the health educator to community residents as well as patients of our health center. And so for any of you who are viewing this and you have questions or looking for health education materials, Sarah is the person at our health center who is the go-to for this. So I will turn it back to you.
Yeah, so key step of actually introducing oneself. I appreciate the prompt to do that. I am Jim Morrill, the medical director of the health center, and welcome to community members who may be seeing this later as well. So I think what we're going to do is have Sarah Avery kind of be our MC and introduce some of the myths that are out there about the COVID-19 vaccine. And she has done a really good job of kind of putting those myths into different categories that people may be considering when thinking about this item that's at the top of everyone's agenda and list right now in our country from a public health perspective. And we have our panel who will kind of handle some of these myths and meet those myths with the actual realities. And I expect that multiple panel members will have ideas about the myths in each of these categories. So we can kind of take it category by category. And we may not get to everything in every category, but we'll try to visit all of these categories here. So Sarah, take it away and take it in any order that you want to go.
Marvelous. Thank you, Jim. So again, I'm Sarah Avery. I know it says Jennifer Pacheco, but I'm Sarah. So today we will go over myths covering vaccine development concerns, how the vaccine works, safety and risk concerns, vaccine accessibility, considering the vaccine, post-vaccine, and the testing site that we have in Charlestown. So I'll go over each myth and the panel can join in of sharing the realities. So our first myth is vaccine development myths. So the vaccine was developed too quickly to be safe. By getting the vaccine, I'm part of an experiment. The vaccine is something in it to track or control people, or the vaccine is another way for pharmaceutical companies to make money. And these are common myths that we're hearing across different communities that we wanted to discuss. Okay. It's hard to see the little panel and all these little squares.
So for those of you who are clinicians, if you encounter this from patients that are in your office, what do you say to these types of myths, or in your private life outside of the health center?
I try to reassure patients and family members and friends that it was thoroughly vetted by the FDA. The studies were wide and of a large population, and that it is a safe vaccine to have. But I can understand people's apprehension when they think about other processes they've seen in the past. It can make it seem that it's very quick, and it was quick, but it was also a different type of a vaccine, the RNA, than a typical flu vaccine, which my understanding is it makes it quicker and faster to develop.
I would just say that, science has advanced so much over the past decade that enabled us to develop a vaccine, not us, but the companies developed a vaccine so quickly. But the technology being used in an mRNA vaccine has been studied for the past 20 years by the companies for other diseases. And so this, although it's the first licensed vaccine, it isn't the first attempt to use this technology. And in the previous other study trials of other mRNA vaccines, no side effects have been seen. It just hasn't been approved because it hasn't shown efficacy of the diseases they've studied it for.
Thank you.
One thing I would add is that the trials for these vaccines, which were done carefully, involved large numbers of people, as people have said. 30,000, I think, roughly in the first two vaccine phase 3 trials, 30,000 in each trial. They were conducted during a time period when the pandemic was raging. And I think it enabled those studies to be completed and have statistically significant outcomes more quickly than usual. You had a lot of this infectious disease around, and so you could really detect the effect of the vaccines more quickly. And that's one of the reasons, it's kind of an unfortunate reason, but that's one of the reasons they were actually able to get very good data very quickly. And I guess another point to make just briefly is that we are beyond those phase 3 trials. Those phase 3 trials were completed. We have the data, and the FDA has, under an emergency use authorization, allowed these to go forward sort of beyond the study phase. So we're not part of a study for these particular vaccines that have been rolled out.
Thank you.
I can also talk a little bit about the last point, which is if the vaccine is another way for a pharmaceutical company to make more money. But as we all know, we had this pandemic and we lost thousands and thousands of lives because of this COVID-19. And the whole government, the whole society, we were pushing for the vaccine development. So this is not to kind of make more money by the pharmaceutical company. This is to serve. And again, by doing that, they might make money, but that is the main purpose, is not to make the money. This is to control the pandemic by producing the vaccine.
It's an important thing.
Thank
you.
Oh, go ahead, Eileen. When I talk to my patients too, I often sort of say they're right. I usually am not the first person to prescribe the newest medicine on the block. And sometimes it makes sense to just give it a little bit of time. But this is an emergency. There are people dying. And I do feel the majority of the people we're seeing are so grateful and so much want to line up to get this vaccine because they know this is a different situation, and this is something that can save lives. So it's something that, everyone needs to make their own decision about, but it's good to make the decision based on the fact and to also know that so many people have wanted it, have already taken it, and that it is saving lives already. I think it's an important perspective.
That is an important perspective. Thank you. So the next set of myths, for myths about how the vaccine works, include the COVID-19 vaccines have live viruses, the vaccine will give me COVID-19, and the vaccine stays in my body.
I sort of think the live vaccine myth, we haven't been able to conquer that yet for the flu vaccine. I would say about 20% of my patients will often say they think they can get the flu from the flu vaccine, they're still resistant. So it doesn't surprise me that people sort of think about the COVID vaccine that way, although it's not clearly true. I do think that some people will get the body aches and a little reaction as their immunity goes in, that's common and to be expected. But I think it's important, again, to know there's no live vaccine. It cannot be transmitted, right?
Can anyone briefly speak on what the vaccine is, if it's not a live vaccine?
So does anyone want to take this as far as the
Just a brief
biology
description of
it?
what
Yeah,
the vaccine is.
An mRNA vaccine. I mean, the way I explain it to patients, and I think you know, would want people listening to this to know, it sort of provides instructions in the form of genetic material that itself doesn't stay in your body. It gets pretty quickly degraded, but it goes in and teaches your cells to make a protein that then teaches your immune system to fight the virus, basically. So it's like sending it's called messenger RNA. It's a, you know, it's newly used for this purpose, but as Dr. Eisenberg said, has been studied for quite a while. That is a message given to your body to help it develop immunity. I don't know if any others want to add to that, but that's the kind of way that I try to explain this type of virus.
Yeah, and I'll just add that unlike other vaccines where we get the attenuated virus, which is essentially like thinking about a virus copy that's not alive, we're not even getting that for the COVID vaccine with the two vaccines that are out right now. So you're just getting the mRNA as Jim described, which is the messenger and protein particle that allows our body to make the immunity.
Right, and just to add to that, this messenger RNA enters the cytoplasm, the cell, but not the nucleus. So it doesn't become part of our genetic material. It's not integrated into our genome. And as Dr. Morrow pointed out, it's degraded pretty quickly, so it doesn't cause any permanent alteration other than stimulating your body to make antibodies, which are then available to fight infection.
Thank you.
And these many people, I think, maybe we'll get to this later, but many of us who've had both vaccines do fine with the first vaccine, and then the antibodies that we stimulate then cause us to get a reaction to the second vaccine. So it's not uncommon to feel sick for a day or so after the second vaccine because of this immunity that's been stimulated by the first vaccine.
Thank you for speaking on that. Okay. So safety and risk myths that have come up include vaccines make me sick. I always get sick from the flu shot. It's not safe. There are a lot of side effects from the COVID-19 vaccine, and the vaccine has not been tested on someone like me. I've already addressed a little bit, Tracy's sharing of, I always get sick from the flu shot and how it's a little bit different. Go into a description of that.
I think that as with anything, you're introducing something to your body. So that's the reaction, that you have this foreign substance in your body, and that's what you're feeling. Again, you're not getting the flu from the flu shot. You won't get COVID from the COVID vaccine. Some of the symptoms are similar, but it's a reaction to this foreign body going into your body. That's what that is, and it's temporary. Whereas if you did get the flu or COVID virus, that it would be long-term and worsening symptoms, and they wouldn't dissipate. I've encouraged patients to, hydrate, tons and tons of fluid, Tylenol and Motrin after the second one. And people, a lot of people have done well with it. Some people, everybody is different. It just affects everybody differently. The reaction that your body has.
Tracy or others, what kind of reactions have you heard about in patients or other healthcare workers that you work with, or yourself?
So for the nursing staff, all of the nursing staff, except for myself, had bad reactions, 24 hours of, felt like they were run over by a truck, chills, temps, body aches. It lasted only 24 hours. I know Margie had the same reaction as me, pretty much nothing. Some chills, fatigue, tiredness, but you go to bed. It also, I think, that people are finding, and again, this is just subjective data, but 15 to 18 hours after the injection is when they're feeling these symptoms. I don't know if anyone's actually studying this or documenting any of this. I had my vaccine in the morning, so I was asleep at that peak hour. So I'm wondering if that type of thing could be happening as well. But again, it's just subjective. But those are the reactions. People can have extreme reactions, very high fevers. It's different for everybody, and as this virus is different for everybody, how people react to it. So it's hard to put it in a box and say, you're going to experience this, because it's just so different for everybody.
Do other people have thoughts or experience with reactions in patients or providers?
I was going to say that one way to think about it that has made me feel better myself is that, having symptoms, whether they're mild to severe, they can last for 24 hours. But when you think of that in the context of comparing it to a possible infection with COVID, the benefits of receiving the vaccine far outweigh, 2+ weeks of feeling that sick and potentially having, further consequences from being sick. So for me, that helped me kind of think, okay, yes, I may have some symptoms after this, but it will be much, much better than having the risk of having symptoms of COVID, which last, far, far greater.
Point, Sarah.
Yeah, I just want to add, I think across the board, I feel like I've heard that even the side effects, they were very time limited. And it was for a short duration.
I'm just looking at the other questions on the screen now, and I'm not seeing any reports anywhere that people that have think they've had flu shot reactions or reactions to other vaccines are more likely to have a reaction or side effect from this vaccine. So I think there's no reason to believe that. And then the trials were really large, but all the trials together, like thousands and tens of thousands of people, very diverse group of people, not under 18 yet, but and not pregnant women yet, but it was older people, younger people across all racial groups. And so it's been likely, and people with immunocompromise, with AIDS and cancers and other immunocompromised diseases and heart disease and diabetes. So it's been really studied in just about everybody. And the efficacy has been there for all groups studied.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It actually was, across racial and ethnic groups, pretty equivalent for these first two vaccines, at least, that have been rolled out, which had pretty comparable, mixes of patients that were enrolled in these phase 3 trials that really established that they worked and their safety. One more point about reactions is just distinguishing what everyone's been talking about, which is the immune system kind of kicking in as the body's like getting taught by this vaccine to fight the virus, and that's, I think, what people are feeling. But distinguishing that from a true allergic reaction to the vaccine, and just want to let everyone listening to this know that the rate of those severe allergic reactions was somewhere around, like 2 to 5 in a million in terms of the rate, the effective rate of those severe reactions, meaning an anaphylactic reaction where, someone has trouble breathing and has maybe some swelling in their airway and needs an immediate treatment with an EpiPen. So it's not that can never happen, but that's very different from these, kind of normal, expected, quite variable, but expected reactions to the vaccine. They are treatable, but those allergic reactions are exceedingly rare. So everyone should know that.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. Next concern is vaccine accessibility myths. If I'm uninsured, I'm unable to get the vaccine, or getting the vaccine may affect my immigration status.
Probably I can jump in and probably give a little more background and share one of the recent studies on this issue, which was published in JAMA like 2 weeks ago. There have been concern not about these issues we have listed, but the accessibility of the vaccine to certain vulnerable population. For example, if someone doesn't have the cell phone, if someone doesn't have the internet connectivity at their home, how can they probably make the appointment? And if someone doesn't have enough money, how can they go and get the vaccine if the vaccine site is somewhere far, somewhere at the health center and not in the community? And what if someone has more disability, is physical disability or mental disability? How will help them and make sure they also get the vaccine? These were some of the issues discussed, and overall they proposed 4 points, major points, to make sure it is accessible to everyone. And the first point was, let's simplify the registration process so that anyone, even if I don't have the cell phone, I might probably walk in and get the registration and get the vaccine, for example. Right? And then the second thing was prioritize the distribution and to the more vulnerable people, like we have been doing nationwide, and also to the hotspots where there are so many high cases of COVID-19 and the mortality, and try to prioritize in those zip codes, and then probably reach out to those areas. Like we were talking earlier, and Dr. Gupta was describing how the vaccination van moves to different sites depending on the hotspot. And then another important point was how to partner with the community stakeholders and community organizations so that we can work with them and fully make sure that more vulnerable people can also access the vaccine. So these were some of the recommendation, and MGB and MGH is also following the same protocol, looks like, and we are moving in a good direction. But if you are listening this, all the community members, if you find someone who has difficulty to access the vaccine, you can contact us. You can probably contact the vaccination site, and you can help us help people to get the vaccine.
And then I can actually speak to some of the larger efforts going on within the MGB system around some of what you mentioned, Dr. Patel, for the benefit of our community members. So one is starting next week, similar to our mobile COVID testing van. MGB is launching what they're calling a vaccine Q&A van. And that van will co-locate with our testing sites at most of our locations. And the explicit purpose of that van will be to help people make their vaccine appointments and get more information about the vaccine. And in the future, we do hope to mobilize the administration of the vaccines, but that's still in the works. And the other thing that's going on system-wide is there is, like, which I think many of the providers are aware of, is the MGB hotline that you can call where you can get information and sign up to get the vaccine.
Thank you.
Great. Does anyone want to sort of sketch a little bit the different ways that someone might gain access to the vaccine now?
Oh, one thing that's very helpful is the Mass Department of Public Health. They have an excellent website that serves many purposes. It gives the very comprehensive data of the viral outbreak and numbers and ethnicity, et cetera. But also it has the COVID links that you can see where they're doing, where they're giving vaccinations on the website. So there's a lot of information. It's the mass.gov-COVID. Mass Department of Public Health. They do a really good job with keeping the data updated. They're redoing it, re-upping it because they were having some complaints from a while ago. They're trying to make it more user-friendly. So it's better and it's getting better. They're working very hard to make it more improved and more accessible.
I think, Jim, you have a dot phrase you created with all the information and links available as well. Did you want to share that with the group? Or?
Sure. Well, I think we've been trying to put together as a clinic some education for patients on where they can get the vaccine. And I think others may have more to say about this, but the general breakdown is health systems, like MGH and MGB, which used to be called Partners. That's our big parent health system, is reaching out. That's one way. And they're trying to find the people who are currently eligible, which right now is, yes, healthcare workers, yes, first responders, those who provide healthcare at home in congregate settings, et cetera, but also those over age 75. So kind of outreach to those groups from the health system. But the other is what Pat was talking about, which is kind of people who are eligible at this phase reaching into DPH, to the state system, to try to gain access to one of those sites that they have. And they have, I think it's 125 of them. It's probably more than that by now, but last week it was 125 across the state of various sizes. So those are like the two general ways. I don't know if people want to say more.
Is the veterans, also the veterans hospitals are offering to the veterans, and they seem to have different age levels at each place as well. So it's any veteran should reach out to the Veterans Hospital Association for that. I have basically been telling everyone, wherever you can get it, has been my message. The supplies that just seem to be different in different places and locations. To not wait for Mass General. If you can get it, get it.
For people without internet access, you can call 211, which is the state telephone number, and now you'll be connected with someone who will connect you with possible sites to get the vaccine.
That's great information. So even if you are listening and if you don't have any internet access, or someone who doesn't have that, calling 211 will help you to get the site.
There are certain mass vaccination sites like Fenway Park and Gillette Stadium that have lots of relatively good open appointments for people that are over 75. And recently, they've also extended to offer vaccines for the drivers of people that bring people to those settings. So if, transportation is a barrier, you may now find people that are willing to take you to some of those sites with openings because they also get the benefit of getting the vaccine at the same time. Although everyone has been sort of frustrated by trying to line up and get the vaccine, there really has been an amazing sort of coordination in the background so that all of the elders in Charlestown who live in senior housing have been offered. All of the, the nursing home patients, all of the high-risk patients, people have gone out, and most of those people are already covered by vaccinations. So there's a lot of good things that are happening that are creative. So I think looking on that mass.gov sign really gives good information and current up-to-date information that we can seek, but things are getting better.
It's such an important point. I think there's reason for optimism and for what you just said, but also I think both like health systems like ours and the state system really have tried to make it so that they're not going to be limited by their sites and their capacity to deliver the vaccine. They're only going to be limited by how much vaccine they get to put into arms. So I think the systems are ready to go. And where we're at now is we just need more vaccine, and it's coming, but the systems are ready. So those appointments will open up both at the state sites and for our own health system, speaking as MGH. But we just need that vaccine to come. And I think that's kind of the next phase we're going to enter, where more and more is going to come. And it's these first two vaccines, and then there's actually a third one, and maybe later toward the end of the hour we can say a word or two about that one. But the third one from Johnson & Johnson that may be coming next, and that could add more options.
So there are like we discussed so many things, but two important points Sarah put here for us is, if someone doesn't have any insurance, what should we do? And if someone has some immigration status, and if they are scared, what might happen? And Puri, we should also address that. I will leave it up to other members to discuss, but I wanted to point out that general recommendation is that if we have to make sure the vaccine goes to everyone, we should not ask for the insurance. We should not ask for the immigration status. And one of the recommendations that was from New York City was that we should not ask for the state provided any identification card. Any form of ID should be okay, but we should not look for any specific ID. So these were some of the recommendations, and I believe we are also following the same in the state. Hello.
Yeah, the state has said if you have an ID, bring it. If you don't have an ID, don't worry about it. Come anyway.
And the same about insurance. I think they are asking for insurance data if you have it and it's available at the mass vaccination sites. But if you are uninsured, they will still vaccinate you.
That's great. So we don't have to, you don't need to worry about it. If you are eligible, go and get it.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, so this one has quite a few, but for those who are considering the vaccine of myths they may have heard are, I already had COVID-19, so I do not need the vaccine. My risk from the vaccine is greater than my risk from getting very sick or dying from COVID-19. I do not need a vaccine because for most young and healthy people, COVID-19 isn't very serious. I do not need a vaccine because my immunity is already strong, or I use natural remedies, or everyone else who gets the vaccine will protect me through herd immunity.
I think I've heard every single one of these. I don't know about other clinicians on the call.
Well, I'll start with the first one, and then we don't really know yet how long the immunity lasts from COVID-19. and there are already now reports of people getting COVID-19 a second time within, 3 to 6 months of having it once. And so I'm sure it confers some immunity, but we don't know for how many, what percent of people and for how long. And so someone may know the answer to this. I don't think we're recommending the vaccine if you've had COVID within 12 weeks, maybe. Does anyone know the exact answer?
I asked Dr. Shenoy, who's a head of infectious disease recently at Mass General. She said that as long as your symptoms have resolved, you can go ahead and receive the first dose. So if your symptoms stopped 10 days ago, you can go ahead and get it. Initially, I think there was a time frame that they had said maybe 3 months or so, but now they said you can go ahead and get it because we really don't know how long immunity is lasting.
The second one, no. It's like, it's a horrible disease for many people. And as we all said, and many of us have had the vaccine, you are sick for a day afterwards, but that's kind of it for the vast majority of people.
What do people think about the herd immunity question, the last question? That's one that I seem to be hearing from patients with quite a high frequency in clinic. How do people address that?
Well, we don't know what herd immunity is, what percentage of the population we have to get there yet. And it might be 70, 80, or 90%. And so we're only at 20, we're not even 20% now. So you're putting yourself at risk for at least 6 or 9 months until we were to get there. And then we just don't know. I mean, it's an unanswered question whether COVID's going to go away or not, like smallpox did or polio has. We don't know that yet. And so you're at risk for getting a really terrible disease if you're not vaccinated and you get exposed to someone who has it.
And it's not only exposing yourself with the risk, but also the other more vulnerable people around you who might not be able to get the vaccine. And if you get the infection, and you might transmit the disease to the other more vulnerable people. So to protect yourself, ourselves, and also the other people around us, we need to get the vaccine. And we should not wait for everyone to get the vaccine, and I don't need to get the vaccine because I will be protected by other people. We should be more responsible and get it.
Such a good point. That's a great answer to the third myth here. It's not necessarily about you if you're a young person. It's about your whole network and everyone around you, some of whom may be more vulnerable than you. That was a great answer, Dr. Pradel.
Anyone want to touch on not needing a vaccine because my immunity is already strong? Anyone come across that?
It's interesting. I was seeing the other day that there is a myth busting section of the WHO website, which people on the call and who might be listening to this might be interested to see. It actually covers a whole range of topics, not just COVID. There are many health myths out there, but among the COVID myths is the sort of the vitamin myths, and that is a myth that vitamins and minerals will protect you against COVID-19, or that just having sort of a healthy constitution will protect you against COVID-19. What you need for protection is this specific immunity, and that's what this vaccine is teaching to your immune system, and you need that to truly be immune. Those other less non-specific things, they have not been proven to protect people. one other thing worth noting that touches some of these myths is the question of whether you can actually carry the virus if you've received the vaccine. And that's kind of a tricky question. Does anyone want to comment on that? Has anyone encountered that question or brought that up with patients?
Well, the studies that have been reported have just been reporting that they've decreased illness, but they didn't report whether it decreased asymptomatic carriage. And so that's currently being investigated, including MGH actually has an ongoing trial now where they're looking at people that got the vaccine and they're checking every week for the presence of virus to see whether it actually prevented asymptomatic infection. So I think the answer is we don't know yet.
Right. And that, I guess, until we truly have herd immunity and we've like eradicated COVID-19, that's sort of part of the issue with the fifth, the final myth on this slide, which is, in fact, those people who have gotten the vaccine may still be infectious. They may be able to carry the virus to you if you don't have the vaccine. So we're still in a phase where we really want to get everyone broadly vaccinated because we don't know the answer.
And the concern after getting the vaccine is once I get the vaccine, I no longer have to do all the public health measures that we have been practicing. Anyone want to touch on why it's still important to physically distance, wear face coverings, wash your hands, stay home when you're unwell, continue cleaning surfaces, and keep track of contact tracing?
I can speak to that. I think there's a few concerns. One, I think Dr. Eisenberg had just mentioned is we don't know if when you're vaccinated that you can or can't carry the asymptomatic infection. So that's definitely a concern. And of course, what's being covered on the news right now about the variants is also concerning. We don't know if this virus continues to mutate. There are some concerns that certain variants are not covered by the vaccine. So I will share, my personal decision is that although I am now vaccinated with both doses, I'm not going to change my practices of not seeing anyone I don't live with without a mask and continuing to stay very safe because we just don't know enough yet and it's not worth taking the chances. I think if you want to see, I may decide to see my own parents once they're vaccinated and I've been vaccinated, but I still think, doing it in a safe way outdoors or with masks is the safest way to go until we have more information on what's happening to the changing virus and whether we can transmit it asymptomatically.
And I was on the call this week with the Department of Public Health, and they're increasing their surveillance dramatically to monitor the variants, the UK, the South African, and the Brazilian variants. So they're really taking a very active look at how they can increase the surveillance and see what's going on in all the different communities throughout the Commonwealth.
And I just wanted to reinforce this idea that it's not only us from MD at Charlestown Health Center that you need to follow all these guidelines. It's the CDC guideline, it's the WHO guideline, and we should follow this even though we get the vaccine.
Good addition. Thank you. And for COVID testing in Charlestown, is Dr. Gupta still on here with us?
Yes.
Wonderful.
So every Friday, sorry, I don't know if my internet connection is stable, but every Friday for the next 3.5 months, we will be in Charlestown on Fridays from 1 to 5, doing primarily it's asymptomatic testing, and it's walk-in only. You don't need insurance, and the patients will get a follow-up of their results within 48 hours by phone call and or letter if they need a letter. And also I'll note that it's not just open to Charlestown residents. So anybody that wants to come for the testing can come in.
I just want to point out for the listeners at home that Dr. Gupta is on the van right now. That's what the van looks like right there. And she is in the city of Everett, which is one of the cities that the van goes to. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, Dr. Gupta, there will be this additional van with your van. Those will be coupled together, right? This will be an MGB, a Mass General Brigham informational van for vaccine.
Exactly, and in some locations we'll also be doing food distribution in addition to helping individuals navigate the vaccine process.
85 People Street. Mary.
Priya, what method of testing are you using on the van?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I couldn't hear it.
What method of testing are you using on the van?
Yeah, so it's the anterior nair swab, and it's a PCR test that's sent to MGH pathology and then actually processed at the Broad Institute.
I think it's also worth mentioning one other longstanding source of testing in Charlestown, which is the New Health Charlestown Healthcare Center that is still doing broad testing as a site in our network for Charlestown residents and also patients at the health center. And I think actually anyone who's referred within the MDB network could be referred to that site, one of the sites. And they have also started vaccinating at the health center. I believe that clinic is up and running. I know we heard about some of their plans for that. And they are also targeting the same groups that are, that are being vaccinated everywhere else at these state sites and by the MGB. So right now it's over age 75 is the target group. And that's by appointment only there at New Health.
Yes, let's see. There's just a note of, did you say it was 211 instead of 311 for Massachusetts? Okay.
That's right.
211.
Yeah, 311 that's correct though for the city of Boston.
Oh, okay.
It's not a vaccine hotline specifically.
Yeah.
They have made the point that they will give information about vaccination sites. I don't think they can sign you up for a vaccine at the 311 number, but the statewide one, which is actually the vaccine hotline now, it includes the vaccine hotline, is the 211.
With the vaccination at New Health, do you have to be a patient there or anyone could go there?
You have to be referred there. Actually, that's a good question. I think anyone who lives in Charlestown who's in the target group now over age 75 can call and make an appointment there. You don't have to be a primary care patient there. But I think they are trying to, for the vaccination, they're trying to target our local community.
Thank you.
We are taking questions now. We have about 4 minutes left.
What didn't we cover that you guys are hearing out there?
I have a question. So if you did have COVID and you do not have it any longer, and you don't have the symptoms, is it recommended to get the vaccination anyway?
Yes, it is. Because we don't know how long the immunity lasts from natural infection. And you can catch it a second time.
Thank you.
Question that I've heard a lot is about these variants, and not sort of specific details, but are these vaccines, these that are being rolled out now, are they felt to work against the variants? What if people heard or learned about that?
I think they're doing a lot of data collection to figure that out. Yeah, I think they're increasing the surveillance in all the countries around the world, and also in Massachusetts to see. I don't think they know that yet.
I would say it does definitely provide some protection. The question will be, does it provide as much protection? And if it doesn't provide as much protection, how quickly will they be able to get new vaccines that will cover the variants, which they're working on?
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's good. I think one of the tricky things is that the two that we're using right now, the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine, were studied before the new variants were really prevalent. They were studied in multiple countries, but the variants weren't really around. So that's why we don't know. But the hope is that, the variants are similar enough and that the immunity is strong enough that it's induced by the vaccine, that there'll at least be a lot of protection. What else did we miss, panel? Anything you want the public to know we didn't cover?
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks to everyone. And I think if there's one message, it's get your vaccine when your time comes. There can be some side effects, but they're expected, and they're not long lasting, and they're not severe, and the benefits greatly outweigh the risks based on good studies that we have. And I think more and more chances, either through the health system or through the state sites, are gonna be there to get this vaccine. Sarah, anything else you want to mention?
Nice job, everybody.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for doing this.
Speaking
This is
today.
really a great way to hear what's going on in the community. And yeah, it's a very nice strategy. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah,
Thank you all for being a part of this.
Thanks to the panel, and thanks to Sarah.
Thank you. Yay.
Thank you to all of you.